So for the domain, I'm going left all the way to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Negative 5, less than or equal to x, less than or equal to, and I'm going right 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, all the way to 5. I colored them in. I can't tell if those points are open. All right, so remember, if those guys are open, and I just can't tell, the copier wasn't great, but if they're open, then you wouldn't have the inequality line underneath. All right, so for the range, we're going down. This is the lowest point right here, and that's a closed point. So your range is going to go down all the way to 0, and it's closed, so it's going to get the line. You're going up all the way to this point, 1, 2, 3, 4. If it's closed, it would have the line, and if for some reason it's open and I just can't see the copier because I colored on it, then this guy would not have the line if it was open. Just can't tell with the copier. All right, we're almost done. The last thing over Unit 1 was inverses. So the big thing with inverses is that you're switching the x and the y. All right, so switch x and y. All right, so find the inverse. So this side, we're just doing a table. So that means all of these y guys are going to go in my x column. So I'm going to put negative 5, negative 3, negative 1, 1, and 3. So those all go in the x column, and then all the x's are going to go in the y column. And that's the inverse. So switch x and y is what you do when you see inverse. Is the relation a function? So when you're talking about the relation, you're talking about the original, and you're looking at the x's. Do any of your x's repeat? Yes, they do. Negative 3 and negative 3 repeat. So the relation is not a function. Now, is the inverse a function? Do any of these x's repeat? No. All right, negative 1 and 1, those are different. So the inverse is a function because none of the x's repeat. All right, when you're doing mapping, the left bubble's your x, the right bubble's your y. And you cannot repeat numbers. So we're still switching around the x and the y. So 5, 1, 3 is going to come on the x bubble, and 1, 3, 9 is going to come on the right bubble. Your arrows are still going to go to the same corresponding numbers. So since 5 and 9 were like paired up, matched up here, then 5 is still going to have an arrow drawn to 9. And 1 and 1 are still matched up, so they are still going to match up. And 3 and 3 match up, so they're still going to match up. So is the relation a function? You're looking at the arrows out of the x bubble. Do any of your arrows come off a number twice? And no, they each have their own individual arrow. So that means none of your x's repeat, so yes, it's a function. Same thing here. None of your arrows come off this number twice, so yes, it's a function because none of your x's repeat. Okay, find the inverse of the relation. All right, so these are coordinate points, so we're just going to flip around the coordinate points. So instead of 5, negative 4, it's going to be negative 4, 5. Negative 3, when it switches around, it stays negative 3, negative 3. And then 3, negative 4 will switch around and become negative 4, 3. All right, so is the relation a function? So you are just looking at the x values. Do any of those x values repeat? No. So yes, the relation is a function. For the inverse, negative 4 and negative 4 are repeating. So no, the inverse is not a function. Find the domain and range of the relation. Since these are individual points, all you can do is list. So all we can do is list all the x's and all the y's of the relation. So the x's are 5, negative 3, and 3. It's probably a good idea to put it in descending order, so negative 3, 3, 5. But it's basically the same thing. The range are going to be the y values. So I have negative 4 and negative 3 and -4. Now we do not need to write -4 twice. And so your range is just going to be -4, -3. All right, so these guys right here are your final answers for the domain and the range. Okay, so the domain and the range of the inverse, you don't even need to really look at the points again, because since the x and the y switch, your domain and range are going to switch. So the range is going to turn into the domain, and your domain is going to turn into the range. But if you flip-flopped it, you